I've got a choice. I've got a choice. We've got two paths. One, we take the path of being classy, of being dignified. Or we got the other path, where I give you the medicine you richly deserve. And I'm going to choose the second path, because the last 28 hours has been the most ridiculous 28 hours of college football history because of ESPN. The mindless dribble coming out of that media company. Lane Kiffin. This is why I've been pulling my hair out. It's been insanity. We know, look, let's start with the SEC. I have given more flowers to the SEC than the SEC has given back to me. They still are the most powerful, the most valuable, the best football conference in the country. Their content is the most valuable. And the biggest reason is because of their great fan bases, great institutions, great history, great student athletes, great football programs. There is your flowers once again. But my God, the logic that is being used in SEC country for the most part right now does not exist. The overreaction in the very first quarter to Indiana. By the way, Indiana played the Buckeyes a whole lot tougher than the number 3 team in the SEC, the Tennessee Volunteers. Let's just put that out there. If Indiana does not deserve to be in the playoffs because they got hammered by an outstanding Notre Dame team in touchdown Jesus South Bend, then the Tennessee Volunteers sure in the hell don't. If you're going to use that logic, if you are going to use that ridiculous Paul Feinbaum, Clay Travis, Peter Burns, and what about Kirk Herbstreit? I've been watching this game. Me and my mother. You know, usually when I do these watch parties, I can't hear the announcers. I was listening. He wasn't saying anything during this game like ESPN said during that Indiana game. Kirk Herbstreit this morning said, you know, it should be the 12 best teams. It shouldn't be the 12 deserving teams. It should be the 12 best teams. The committee's got to do better. Okay, well, now what do you say? Now what do you say? Now what is it? Now what is it? Every single talking point of ESPN, SEC, and these so-called college football reporters have been absolutely destroyed in this game. And you know what? If it wouldn't have happened in this game, it would have happened next year, or the following year, or the following year. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? And I said this in the second quarter of the Indiana game. Big Ten teams are going to get blown out. The SEC teams are going to get blown out. This is college football, for God's sakes. Somebody, I should have bookmarked it. Whatever. My bad. But did you see someone, they posted on X, all the blowouts in the 4-team playoffs, all the blowouts. Look, I like some of these guys. I do. I like them. They're a whole lot smarter than me. They can talk better than me. They got better graphics than me. I'm a nobody. Josh Pate does an excellent job. But everything he said, everything people are saying, it doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. It doesn't. Now they've dug a hole. And I'm not talking, look, there is SEC fans in the PATC family who Larry the GM came out here and told the SEC fans, what are you doing? Tennessee could get beat. Larry the GM warned the people, SEC people in the PATC family have been warning people. Now Paul Feinbaum has dug a hole. Just today, the committee has embarrassed themselves. Did they embarrass themselves when they took Tennessee? Now you got to answer that question. Your back is up against the wall. Peter Burns. Who is this Peter Burns? Who is this, who is that guy? JP Pickle, or that on 3 guy, JP Pickle I don't know what his name is. Thank God I don't follow these guys. A bunch of On3 guys basically lecturing everybody that none of these teams deserve to be in it, but all these SEC teams and a couple of Big Ten teams. JD Pickle. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to get his name wrong. I saw his tweet today. I'm trying to be, look, a lot of people are mad at me. Okay, be mad at me. Be mad at me, but this is being authentic. This is an authentic national college football YouTube channel. I am not going to be bamboozled by this ESPN machine. JP Pickle, is that his? JD Pickle. JD Pickle said on X today, he says, is this what you guys wanted? The 12 best teams in the playoffs? Do you think this is the 12 best team in the playoffs? Mocking the college football fan. And of course I answered back. I said, it was never about the 12 best teams in the playoffs. I keep hearing this from Kirk Herbstreit, Paul Feinbaum, Clay Travis. It couldn't be about the best 12 teams because we were in the middle of a contract, a playoff contract. Everybody had a vote on it. We had to have consensus. Weren't anybody following this? Was it just PATC? Were we the only ones who understood? Everybody had to sign on. Majority vote wasn't good enough. ESPN could not ram it through. The Big Ten could not ram it through. Notre Dame. Everybody had to sign on to it. So we needed access for everybody. It was never about the 12 best. Number one, it was never about the 12 best. So On3 and JD Pickle and everybody else, try to follow along here. I'm try to follow along. Number one. Number two, there is nobody who can tell me what the 12 best teams are. There's 134 teams. There's 4 power conferences. We have unbalanced schedules. We have limited data points. You're not going to get you don't know the 12 best teams. Nobody knows. We've got injuries. A starting quarterback can get injured during the week of the game. We have people getting sick. And God, it's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. Every single talking point that has been made by ESPN is now just bleeding out on the floor. Now, does any of them, number one, have the class, have the dignity to say, you know what? The third best team in the SEC, thank God we didn't get the number 4 team. I'm going to use the same logic that I used on ACC, on the Big 12, on the Big 10. Are they going to have enough class and dignity to use the same logic? Or why don't they just give up and just say, look, this is the playoffs. This is how it is. It's imperfect, just like every other playoff system in sports. There's going to be blowouts. And then put up on your screen all the blowouts that we had in the 14 playoff. Be honest. Be transparent. And this is why it drove me nuts. I'm going to be honest with you, I've made a few phone calls. I have called Moen Vision, Mr. Buckeye, before this game started. I've talked to friends. I talked to my mother. She did not understand a word I was saying, but I said, this has been the least enjoyable watch parties that I've ever done. And I love doing watch parties. I love being here. I love college football. But I love talking about the game. Not this 4 minutes into the Indiana game and saying, oh, look at here. And then followed up by Peter Burns, the propaganda machine, Paul Feinbaum, a complete Kirk Herbstreit. I don't know where his mind's at. And it's been, this is the playoffs we've been waiting for. This is the playoffs we have. You can argue back and forth who should have been in it. You know, when it gets down to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, there's not going to be much of a difference. Resumes are going to be a little bit different. You can balance this against that, that against this. But to have this overriding propaganda machine, which ESPN is, and to say that Indiana should not have been in the playoffs because they got beat bad by Notre Dame, to say that SMU should not be in the playoffs because they got beat today, for that to be your reason, then you better say that Tennessee should not have been in the playoffs. Say it. Say it with me, brother. Say it with me, sister. All I have asked is for people to be consistent with their arguments. And Lane Kiffin, where are you tonight? I said it earlier today. For a fan to say what Lane Kiffin said, fine. But for Lane Kiffin, a head coach of an SEC team, going out there and mocking other teams that made the playoffs, saying the committee, did you get it right? Did you get it right? What are you saying now? Lane Kiffin, you're silent. Lane Kiffin, you're soft. You're still soft. You're still soft. You should come out and say something, but you're not going to, are you? Okay, we are going to open up the phone lines. Again, a lot of people are going to say, Greg, you're anti-SEC and pro-Big Ten or anti-Big 12 or pro-A, whatever. I'm consistent. I'm absolutely consistent. Maybe consistently wrong, but I'm not going to switch my argument. You cannot, look, this is the first time that we have got games on the road in the first round of the playoffs. Very small data points. And people have come to these wild conclusions already. ESPN, I'm embarrassed for ESPN. Because I don't know how you get you've lost so much credibility. Like so much. Go read their tweets during the day. It was like a machine. It was boom, 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 boom. And now they're silent. None of them will say, well, maybe Tennessee should not have made the playoffs. Maybe the third place team of the SEC shows that the fourth and fifth place team should not have even been considered. Why aren't they saying that tonight? Why aren't they saying that tonight? Inconsistent, fraudulent. John Teal, the ink is still wet for Texas being an SEC team too. Thank you for your generosity. Super chat. Helmer Hennison. Kiffin, did Tennessee belong in the playoffs? A lot of people are asking him that question. He was so brave and so, oh yeah. Let me make fun of these other teams. Oh, but Tennessee, he's going to keep his mouth shut. Rock and rant. The irony, the highest ranked team from the SEC is the one that got their bleeps pushed in the most on national TV. Keep crying, Lane Kiffin and ESPN. I mean, and again, what's the comeback? What is the comeback to what Rock and Rant just said? And I said it. I said it today. I said it last night. I said, what is going to happen when an SEC team gets blown out in the first round? What happens when an at-large SEC team gets blown out? What happens to the argument? What happens to this unbelievable multi-billion-dollar propaganda machine, ESPN? What are you going to say? You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen? Paul Feinbaum is going to stroll up there on a Sunday morning. Heather Dinich may sound reasonable, but Paul Feinbaum, well, Indiana should never have made it. SMU should have never made it. Should have been Alabama. And then he's not going to answer the Tennessee question. They're not even going to bring it up. They don't challenge each other. When's the last time you saw an ESPN college football panel challenge each other like we do at Peek Around the Corner, like every other YouTube channel out there? God, it's embarrassing. And look, I can say this. I've got no strings attached. A lot of them follow me on X. I don't know why they follow me. Reese Davis follows me. A lot of them do. I don't know why they do, because I keep hammering on them. I don't want to, but my God, there's no logic to what they're saying. Thank you, Rock and Rant, for being a member for 11 months. I do appreciate it. And by the way, I'm going to say this. Thank you, Rock and Rant. You are hereby knighted, cloak, and that. I'm going to say this. When Notre Dame won, I said, tip of the cap to Notre Dame. When Texas won, I said, tip of the cap to Texas. When Penn State won, tip of the cap to Penn State. When the Ohio State Buckeyes won, tip of the cap to the Buckeyes. Tip of the cap to the Buckeyes. 4 teams happen to have home games, happen to be better than the other team they were playing, and sometimes you get a blowout. That's what happens in college football. That's what happens in the NFL. God, I hope somebody on ESPN said, can somebody on ESPN say that tomorrow? One person. I'm asking for one person. Can anybody stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to get to your phone calls. Anthony Carlson, at least we got another old-fashioned Rose Bowl matchup. The Buckeyes versus the Ducks. You are correct, Anthony Carlson. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it so very much. Kiffin, stay in your lane. KG10 to TH5. Thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for coming on in. I appreciate it. I'm not going to read that one out loud, but thank you, John Teal, for your super chat. I appreciate. Marcus Williams, SEC stands aren't going to say anything about it. I hate Ohio. So do I. In fact, I called Moen before the game started. I didn't wish him luck. I ripped on him. I ripped on the Buckeyes. And if we're friends, I mean in a friendly way. I've been saying all night, the fat guy from Minnesota. On X, I've been saying the fat guy from Minnesota, I can cover Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. Man press, clutch and grab, I think I can do it. That's how delusional I've been. That's how anti-Buckeye I have been. Okay? Nitwit, here comes the Nittany Lions Fiesta Bowl bound. Holy smokes. Thank you for the super chat, Nitwit. I do appreciate it. I'll get back to you in a second. Marcus William, Cloak and Dagger for the 9th month. I've got one more thing I want to say, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. Cloak and Dagger, Marcus Williams, thank you so very much. And Nitwit, thank you for your incredible generosity. Unbelievable. Thank you, Mr. Penn State. Congratulations on the win. I think you're going to have a tough game ahead of you. But we'll see. One more thing I want to say. The college football playoff expansion is this is my opinion. A lot of you are going to disagree on it. And that's fine. We can disagree here. They can at ESPN, but here we can. The expanded playoffs is a wonderful, great thing. You know, the first round games might be blowouts. We might have a couple good ones next year. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But it has provided more access to the playoffs. It has provided more fun during the regular season. It has provided fan bases more of a buy-in to the football program. It has provided more opportunities to have a successful year. It's provided more opportunity to gain momentum as a football program. Look at Boise State, look at Arizona State, look at Indiana. The college football playoff, the expanded playoffs, to me, has been an incredible success. Yes, we've had blowouts in the first round. But I still think it's been an incredible success. And I think it's going to lead to more success because more programs just saw what Indiana did, just saw what Arizona State did. BYU had a great season. South Carolina was knocking on the door. We can go over all these programs. UNLV knocked on the door. Army knocked on the door. Miami knocked on the door. This was an unbelievable college football season. Thanks in large part, not entirely, to the college football expanded playoffs. And this is why people are saying, Greg, this is not like you. Greg, you're being emotional. Greg, I don't like this, Greg. I don't like this fat guy from Minnesota. Because this is the greatest thing that has happened to college football in my lifetime. This expanded playoffs. And for people to treat it as some sort of wild overreactions to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, delusion. Like, that's why I got so amped up in the last 36 hours. Again, the SEC is the best football conference in the country. The most valuable football conference, athletic conference in the country. And it's because of the great fans of those football programs. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed because you didn't get a fourth team in the playoffs. That hasn't changed because Tennessee got crushed tonight. None of that has changed. None of it. But I tell you what has changed. The credibility of those who propagandize at ESPN, SEC all the time. The way, the difference they treated this demolition of Tennessee versus the demolition of Indiana, SMU, we hear it loud and clear. Maybe in the silos of ESPN, where there is absolutely no self-awareness, the rest of the country, we completely understand. This sport is not under threat because of an expanded playoffs in where we see a couple blowout games. This sport is not under threat because SMU made the playoffs. This sport is not under threat because a G5 representative is in the playoffs. This sport is under threat because you've got guys like Paul Feinbaum who keeps wanting to separate the SEC from the rest of the college football world. He does this daily. And all these other reporters, not all of them, not all of them, not all of them, not all of them, not Ross Dellinger, not the great Brett McMurphy, not all of them, but a lot of these guys and gals who want that access, who want to someday work at the Disney company, that want to have ESPN planted on their shirt. By God, they're going to do everything they can to be on the right side of the line to make sure that when they go into an interview with ESPN, there's nothing in their social media, nothing in their articles, nothing that says, I disagreed with ESPN. It's nights like this is why this channel was built. No strings attached. You can say, Greg, you're dead wrong, dead right, everything in between. But this channel, this YouTube channel, I got pom-poms for nobody except for Maroon and Gold. And I will say what we will say what we think. You, me, everybody in this PATC family. I don't need their access. We don't need their access. We've been breaking stories. We don't need them. We don't need Fox. So, I just want to put that out there. College football playoff, the best thing that's happened in the sport in my lifetime. Okay, let's get to Stephen McNeely. You've nailed the argument, Greg. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you for the super chat, Stephen McNeely. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. Let's open up the phone lines. Everybody is tired of hearing me talk. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. And by the way, I don't blame anybody who thought that Tennessee was going to win this game. I don't blame anybody. It was unfortunate that Sampson got injured early. He's one of my top five players in all of college football. Things happen in a college football game. I had expressed that Nico was going to be running for his life. I think we all knew that. Tennessee's offensive line, not good. It just didn't go their way. It just did not go their way. It doesn't mean that Tennessee did not belong in the playoffs.
From
Immaculate.
Mr. Hawkeye is on the line. The floor is yours.
Are you sure? I think you got a little bit left in you, Greg.
Nope. I emptied the tank. I emptied the tank, my man. Go ahead, sir.
Of all the days that I've been posting on X in the past, this has got to be the strangest day ever. Would you agree with that?
The strangest day?
Yes.
I find it strange and disturbing. Yes.
Yes. Like where did everybody go? I was like, all day long. I mean, people were involved nonstop. I've never experienced that before. It was a lot of fun. And even with SEC people, we know some that are good folks and they're in good fun and can have good takes on it. But it was just crazy nonstop until that Ohio State game started. And just right off the bat, they were just smoking Tennessee. And it was like a certain portion of X just shut down.
Yep.
Stop talking.
And ESPN has shut down. Kirk Herbstreit shut down. Kirk Herbstreit shut down in that game.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was like, all right, here, go for it, man.
No.
It was. I haven't made comments on it. Like, where did everybody go? Like, you could still say, like, oh, well, Tennessee wasn't one of our best teams. Or I was like, you got to have something to say. You folks have had a lot to say that made no sense, but you still said it. Like, where is everybody? Like, it's just one of your teams. But it was like, I don't know. It was like everyone just had, like, the same realization of,
Yeah.
maybe the SEC, we're good. We're still the best conference overall, but we're just not overpowering anymore.
Yes, SEC is the best conference. Nothing has changed. It's just the
Right.
it's
They just realized they're not overpowered.
This is the third place team, okay? And they got dollywopped. I mean, they got just. I mean, Indiana played Ohio State much better than Tennessee. So all these talking points have been completely destroyed. And you know what? They were stupid to begin with. And we're not going to, this is the best way to say it. I don't care what 12 teams you put in the playoffs. Go ahead. Go at it, ESPN. Go at it. If the SEC separated from everybody else and had 20-team conference and then had a 12-team playoffs, they would have blowouts in the first round. That's football, ladies and gentlemen, especially when you're doing road and home playoff environment.
Yeah.
You know, it's insanity. If this game would have been first on a Friday night and Tennessee got dollywopped, then maybe we wouldn't have had Paul Feinbaum, Clay Travis, Peter Burns. I mean, who is this Peter Burns? I mean, does he work for Pravda or Putin?
I've never seen him do anything. I don't know.
He's an automatic propaganda machine. I mean, these guys are. I never see Peter Burns do anything. I'm trying to be kind here. I know. But you know,
you hit it right earlier, though. You were talking about certain people wanting, to improve their status and their job potential. Look, I don't even know who he is, but he's with ESPN, so clearly he's trying to move up.
And they're all trying to move up. They're all trying to get their access.
But my problem is they're basically grifting all day long, setting up, saying all this stuff, and you could see, like, it was just driving everyone crazy. And then they all just stopped because it's just like, oh. And then everyone else stopped. So it's like kind of like this proof of, like, ESPN has just been grifting and pushing people all day long with this madness, and it drove everyone crazy.
And they're pushing people
and then everyone
away.
Kind of
they're pushing people away. I mean,
I love
the SC. I watch SEC football all the time. I'm doing watch parties. I predict Georgia to win it all. I've got Texas. I got two SEC teams as one of the four that I think that can win it. I mean, but they're pushing people. They're just pushing people away. This is getting to be like, last year was terrible. This year is triple down. They're tripling down. Did you watch Herb Street this morning? That lecture that he gave about Indiana, he better do it with Tennessee right now, or he's going to get hammered more than he got hammered with the FSU screw job.
Yeah.
Does he know that? Is there any awareness going on at ESPN?
I think he's only aware of his paychecks, and I think he thinks that it's going to go up despite all the hate, because, love, hate, it's all attention. The opposite of love is, just not caring about something, and that's the worst for them, is when someone doesn't care about them. So if he gets everyone hating him and getting involved, like, that's still money for him. And that's what he's doing. That's why I say it's gotten kind of ugly in terms of it just being an obvious grip. And to have it come from the top, usually when you talk about grips, you talk about little people trying to get in and do that. But this is like people at the top of the business who are just abusing people all day long on the internet with just really not just garbage takes, but like bad takes, takes that they knew were bad, but they knew would drive people crazy. And so they were just ramping it up.
Well, it's like I always say this. It's okay to be wrong, but be consistent. Yeah. Take the L. Be consistent. Be consistent with your logic. Be consistent. Be consistent with the argument. We've got people here. Rowan Phillips. It'll be okay. Ohio State hasn't beaten an SEC team in a while, so of course they're going to crow. Not really.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Go ahead. Look. I mean, look. It's Indiana's terrible. SMU's terrible. All these teams are terrible. The 4th and the 5th SEC teams should make the tournament. Or if it's not Alabama, it should be South Carolina. If not South Carolina, it should be Ole Miss. This is just terrible. And then Tennessee, the 3rd place team in the SEC, gets absolutely crushed. And the Buckeyes had a lot tougher time with Indiana. And is any SEC people in the chat room or in my DMs or anywhere going to say, yeah, you know what? The SEC, still the best conference in the country, but maybe they shouldn't have gotten 4 teams in the playoffs. Maybe they should have, but it's debatable. I can understand that now. It's not going to happen.
Well, here's my whole issue is I think it's a reasonable debate to have. I think that's the whole point of having the 12 is to have that crazy debate for those things at 12. That's why when people thought by going to 12 we're not going to have controversies, like, no, we're going to have a whole lot more. You just wait. Because no one's going to look at this and go, it's for 12th place. We don't really deserve to be there. It's no big deal. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But secondly, if there was to be a replacement for Indiana, which I'm okay with it being brought up, like, you can make a good argument for it. In my opinion, it shouldn't have been one of the SEC teams. It should have been a team like BYU. Like, number one, they beat one of the teams that's in the CFP. So I look at that and say they're right up there, and they got kind of screwed on the rankings. So it's kind of like you just leave it as it is, because if you really start to open up to that point, you can look at the rankings further. There's just no point of that at this time. But as far as this game, though, man, what's up?
Go ahead.
I was just going to kind of take it to a different spot here. How about Ohio State?
Yeah.
Is this finally the team that we expected? Like Big Ten fans, we expected Ohio State to just demolish everyone this year. I mean, they have an all-star team, and it didn't really ever happen much. I mean, Iowa made them look like they were, but they didn't even really play that well in that game. We played horrible. But this was that game, and this was that team, and that, in my opinion, that's the best team in the country right now.
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, they're
the number of mistakes was so low: passing, running, blocking, tackling, stuffing, defensive backs playing. Like, where were they not great?
Trayvon Henderson looked extra quick tonight. I don't know, like, if he's refreshed or... Yeah.
I don't know either, man. They just were like, dude's on fire. Sorry, but he's going to run way more than he normally does. Because after you see the way the guy's running, if you're not running him 3/4 of the time or more, you're probably getting it wrong.
And I might, you know what? I might have to be a fraud myself. I think I'm going to be a fraud here. I think I'm going to give everybody opportunity to let me have it. Greg the Gold, and I've been doing great. I've only got one game wrong so far in the playoffs and in the bowl games against the spread. I might have to take a pass on picking Oregon, Ohio State.
I know.
I might look. You guys can make the selection, and right when I'm going to make the selection, I'm going to sabotage my own studio and pull the plug out. I know I'm not smart enough to make that pick. Let's put it that way.
I think I know who I'm picking in it, but we'll see. I should, like, for a lot of things, my opinions and things I said, I should probably be upset that this is a big rematch from the regular season. Like, a whole bunch like, oh, this is making some of those be worth less. But that was a really close game in Oregon. And this is like the two top teams of the PAC team and the big team, you know, with everything that's happened back in the Rose Bowl. I can't help but be just kind of nostalgic and being like, and it's probably going to be the best game of the whole CFP. So, I mean, I'm gonna love that game. Like, hopefully it's a good game. Like, it's all the way to the end, you know, neck and neck the whole time. We'll see. I'm sure. I hope a whole bunch of people are about to jump in right here and call and go off about this, because it was a fun day. It was an interesting day, and I'm just glad you came on so we could chat about it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right, you have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
Beautiful. The Big Lubbock. The Sun Devils will beat the Horns. You know what? I might have to take a pass on all 4 games. I might have to make sure I go into like a sugar coma, pass out on the day we make the selections, and not make any picks. That is the coward that I am. Sun Devils, what is the line, Big Lubbock? What is the line on Texas, Arizona State? What's the line? I need some lines here. What is the Vegas line? Now, I forget the guy's name. What's the big guy? There is one injury at the offensive line for Texas. One of the offensive linemen, it looks like he's going to be ready to play next week. The other one ain't. And Wisner, I think, is going to be okay. Texas got beat up a little bit. Arizona State's going to be fresh. You got to take that into consideration.
Call from
Nitwit.
Nitwit, the floor is yours. Congratulations. You getting ready? You getting ready for next week?
I tell you what, Greg, I mean, what an atmosphere. I mean, I know everybody's all in the negativity, but being down there, I was actually on the field. Like, there was moments in that game where the ground was shaking.
Yeah,
literally.
I saw your chat earlier today. Yep.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. What a college football atmosphere, something we should be celebrating. I definitely agree with you. I think ESPN's doing a disservice to this process.
Yeah.
I think criticizing, when you have coaches out there being idiots and talking heads, putting people down and all that kind of stuff, mad respect for SMU. That was a good team. They just got caught in a buzzsaw.
These teams are having their historic season. And all social media and everywhere in ESPN, all they're doing is whacking on Indiana, throwing rocks at SMU. It's there's something shady. There's something bad at ESPN. That culture. How do I call? I don't know. They do not want to celebrate college football. They just want to celebrate one conference. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's disturbing. Sir. I think. Yeah, it is disturbing. I think, as far as some of these teams, I think, and I know Ohio State, I follow them really good. Even the Big Ten in general. If you look at some of these teams Penn State went through a stretch where we went Ohio State, we had Minnesota, Wisconsin. I don't know if you remember that Minnesota game where guys were dropping like flies. It seemed like every other play. Somebody was getting hurt. That's what people don't understand about Penn State and Ohio State. When they played that game, there was key injuries on both sides. Going into games after, there was a lot of injuries, whether it was Minnesota. I think we lost our second starting safety, and then there was an offensive lineman that went down. this is the first time I've seen Penn State, especially players like Nick Singleton. And you brought up Henderson at Ohio State. Seems like you said he had a second gear.
Yeah, he did.
Singleton did today too.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. What was going? And even Kyron Allen. Early on, I was thinking, oh, Allen, he looks a little slow, but then he got his second win. But yeah, go ahead, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Right. I actually think Singleton was dealing with a groin injury all year. But like these teams, I think like looking at Ohio State and looking at Penn State, I think they're getting healthy at the right time, and we're getting some of our defensive players back. Deny Dennis Sutton, 100% healthy, had a great game today. So just as that, like I think sometimes you got to look at the college football season. This is really a season now of attrition. Like, what's your backups going to be doing? What injuries you're going through? Like, your team is a different state at different points in the season based on like what injuries you're dealing with, what progressions of the, I have to give, like, I was following your tweets about the Clemson quarterback. I mean, I haven't seen him since the beginning of the year. What a great improvement that kid's made over the season. So, just watching these teams develop and grow, and that's what we love college football.
Yeah.
I just really feel like, all the negativity as a team that even Penn State's kind of got that negativity. They shouldn't be in. Penn State didn't win beat anybody. Like, you get all that kind of stuff. And like, sometimes, you just got to put the noise down. I mean, when you're watching these games and you're watching players like Tyler Warren and Nick Singleton and Katron Allen and Abdu Carter and all these, Drew Aller and just all these players that you have, at some point in time, you got to have faith in the talent, and they're going to show up and they're going to ball out. And, I'm really proud of my team, despite all the hate that we got from ESPN. Like, why Penn State shouldn't be there, and Penn State's not any good, and they didn't beat anybody. Like, you get all that, but they never bring that up about Texas. You know what I mean? Like, they never say that Texas didn't have a ranked win or whatever. It's just all the narratives, like you said, go against the credibility. Like, it's starting like, yeah, we do have a top 25 win. It's against Illinois. Texas don't. So I don't understand like where these narratives come from, why they're pushing these narratives.
Yeah, if you stay in one lane, if you just take one lane of information, and that is what you're going to decide on who should make the playoffs or not, it's not going to hold up for very long, because at some point you're going to have to adjust it because it doesn't work. You got to take everything into play, and reasonable people can still disagree. But when you get to the point where you've lost 3 football games, and you're Alabama, and you've lost 24-3 to Oklahoma, and you lost to Vanderbilt, who lost to Georgia State, and you got a third loss, and you're Alabama, and you defeated Ole Miss, you defeated South Carolina. So the committee doesn't feel that they can move South Carolina and Ole Miss ahead of Alabama. And then you've got Ole Miss, who lost to Kentucky. Kentucky couldn't beat anybody else during the season, but they could beat Ole Miss. And then Lane Kiffin goes...
Bad luck for Lane today. He's getting crushed. He's getting crushed.
Lane Kiffin...
I was crushing him pretty good, too, on X today, too.
His credibility is demolished outside of SEC country. But he doesn't know. He has no idea. He's got his head in the clouds.
But I think, Greg, like, you can go back. If you go back and watch that Georgia-Alabama game. I remember all the hype in that game. I'm watching that game. Now, granted, I've been watching football since the 1986 championship game, Penn State-Miami, with my grandfather. That was the first game I've ever watched. I watched that game, and my conclusion after watching that game is these two teams aren't that good. This is not the same Alabama team. Disciplined defense, hard-nosed defense. This is not Georgia's offense. Inconsistent, on and off, quarterback throwing picks. Those stories have not changed throughout the season. Do you understand what I mean? Like, it's not like I remember watching that game, and yeah, it was hyped up like these were two of the best college football. They did not look like the best two college football teams. And I'm sorry, like, that's the reality. You cannot watch Bama and Oklahoma and make the case that Alabama was one of the top 12 teams in the country.
I think
when you watch
can.
That game.
I think you can. I think you can. I think you can make that argument. But if it doesn't go your way, like Immaculate is saying, Immaculate's made some good posts. Like he's saying, Alabama left it to the judges, right? And sometimes when you leave it to the judges, it doesn't go your way. I wish I would have thought of that analogy. Immaculate, you should have given me that analogy. If you don't knock somebody out, if you don't go in, if you don't end up 10-2, you know, in the SEC, if you're 10-2, you're probably going to be in, right? But if you're 9-3 and you've lost to the couple bottom teams in the SEC and you couldn't score a touchdown against Oklahoma, you left it to the judges and it didn't go your way. You know, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I look at that. I mean, like, if Penn State would have upset Ohio State at home, and then, you know, they ended up, you know, they lost to Oregon, and then Michigan upset them, would I expect Ohio State to be in the college football playoff? Would I be out there saying, Ole Miss would be, 5-5 in the Big Ten? Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I would just expect, hey man, you know what? You're a great team, Ohio State, but you've lost 3 games. If Penn State lost 3 games, we should be in the playoffs.
If Penn State would not have come back and beat USC, and let's say the Gophers,
be in the playoffs.
Let's say the Gophers tripped you up. You know, Gophers lost by 1.
Right.
Let's say, Penn State 9-3, and let's say Ole Miss defeated Kentucky. Ole Miss would be rated ahead of Penn State, and that would have been it, right?
Right, but you don't you wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't react the way they are doing. I think that's the problem. I don't think a lot
of us would. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where we've just got to the problem. Like, like James Franklin wouldn't be tweeting out, way to go, Ole Miss. You got blown out by whoever. You know what I mean? That's just that's childish.
That's bad. That's
kind of ignorant. And, man, I'll just, you know what, Greg, I know I'm holding up the phone here, but thanks a lot, man. You take care. God bless. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Congrats. My question is, what is Lane Kiffin gaining by doing what he's doing? What is he gaining? Is he getting pats on the back from the athletic director, from the fans, from the booster? What is exactly going on there? You don't see any other coaches doing this, right? Because it's what is Lane Kiffin thinking here? He's going to have the committee change their mind. I don't get it. Now, I get an Ole Miss fan being upset. Ole Miss hasn't made the play. I get it. But a head coach of a football program, every time a non-SEC team loses in a rout, he's making this big scene. But then when Tennessee loses in a rout, he's quiet.
From
Big Ten, brother.
Big Ten, brother. Can you hold on for a moment, please?
I sure can, Greg. Take your time.
I do appreciate it. I'm way behind. A lot of people, a lot of nice people donating. Xmas Talks, SEC
Take your time,
trash.
Greg. I got nothing to do for the next 2 hours. Take your time.
Okay. All right. SEC is trash. I would disagree with that. The CFP committee got it right. Bama and Ole Miss would have been routed by Penn State and Ohio State. Indiana and SMU deserve to be in the college football playoff. SEC homers. I'm going to skip the rest of that, but I do appreciate the super chat, Xmas Talks. I appreciate the support you've given this channel. Thank you so very much. I do appreciate it. Xmas Talks, a gifted membership. And MGC Sooner. Sooners, they got to be pretty happy. Getting old John Mateer as their quarterback. The true Johnny football, John Mateer. The Sooners, they got to be pretty happy. Anyways, more on that later. A gifted membership. Thank you, Xmas Sooner. Both of you are hereby knighted. Cloak and Dagger. And Xmas Talks did another gifted membership. Holy smokes. Thank you so much, kind sir. I appreciate it. The Architect. Oh boy. The Architect is now a member of Peek Around the Corner. Once again, Knighted Cloak and Dagger. Thank you guys so very much. Thank you, Xmas Talks. I don't even say your name right. I never say your name right. I do apologize. But thank you, X. I appreciate it so very much. Big brother, Big Ten brother, appreciate your patience. The floor is yours.
All right, Greg. Yeah, this is interesting. I find this one's fascinating because everyone's trying to figure out, is this playoff thing? They can't go backwards. First of all, once you introduce the playoffs, you can't say, well, you know what, we're going to go back to the.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope and pray that you're right, sir.
Yeah, they're not because the playoff. Look, when it gets worked out, it's going to be okay. But the only problem, you know my experience with playing college ball and playing in the NFL. The problem I see here is the difference is there's different levels of college football, and they're trying to blend them together for the playoffs. Meaning, SMU, Boise State. I'm not taking anything away from them. Those are very good football teams. There's guys that are going to get drafted and play the pros from those teams. But it's hard.
And we do that with every other sport as well in college athletics. Let's not forget.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But my comparison is this. You do that in basketball, you do that in that, but you also see blowouts in basketball. Penn State always comes in and wins the national championship in wrestling for the last 8 out of 10 years. What happens is, if you can't take a team like Boise or SMU and say, okay, you won your conference, you're going to get an auto bid, and then you're going to play Ohio State. Because at the end of the day, even if you win the ACC or you win, the Big 12, you're still lining up when you play Texas and Ohio State and Georgia. You're still taking guys. You look across the sideline and you're seeing guys at Ohio State and Georgia and go, wow, 13 5-star guys. Boy, oh boy. The difference in talent, yes, Boise's the best team in that conference. But just like high school, okay, think about high school. In Illinois, there's 8 different, Division 1A, 2A, 3A, all the way through 8. There's a reason why they separate the 1A from the 8A division. There's 8 because even if you win the 8A, you're going to get crushed by the 8A. You see what I'm saying? Because it's just the talent is just so much because they have more kids at the top at the 8A school. So their football teams have 140 kids. The 1A team, their kids, they have 40 kids on the football team. So even though the bottom or the 8A are the champions in their division, they're not going to be able to compete with the 8A, the bigger schools that have 2,000 kids in their school. Even though they're both champions, they both won their division. You can't just match them up and say, okay, here's the championship game, because you're like, wait a minute. Even though they're both champs, look who they have. Ohio State has SMU is not going to have maybe one 5-star guy in the next 5 years. Okay, Ohio State's going to get 5 more. You see what I'm saying? Just because you're the champion of the Big 12 or the champion of the ACC, that doesn't mean you can walk off and say, okay, we're going to seat you here. You should be very competitive against the SEC and Big Ten. And I'm not taking anything away from those conferences. You know, Miami comes out of the ACC. They had a lot of great years. Clemson's won 3. They had a lot of great years. Okay, so I'm not trying to say, you know, Big 12 had Oklahoma and Texas. They had a lot of national championships. They had a lot.
TCU beat Michigan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
it can happen.
But what happens is things have changed so much in college football. The things that people aren't taking into account are, okay, if Boise State wins their kind of Big 12, okay, they come home, they're going to play Ohio State, who has, like I said, they'll have 12 five-star guys, and they spent $25 million in the portal. So, okay, Ohio State's the Big Ten champ. We're going to line them up against SMU, who's the ACC champ. It's two different things. It's like saying,
okay, but let me push this conversation forward.
Okay. Okay.
So, okay, that's fine. I mean, is that a problem? Why would that be a problem? I mean, look, my Golden Gophers, I mean, 4 or 5, not 4 or 5, but 3 or 4 Big Ten games a year. We are completely out-talented on the football field. We don't have the resources. We're $100 million behind Ohio State. We've been doing this for decades. We've been getting beat for decades. But we're going to keep playing. Once in a while, we win. And once in a while, a Big 12 team, an ACC team, and even a G5 team is going to win a game in the playoffs. Is that a bad thing? What is wrong with that? Is there something wrong? You're correct. The Big 10 and the SEC teams, I don't think there's a surprise to anybody, are going to win more games against these other schools. I think everyone kind of realizes that, even with the change of NIL and all this other stuff. But is this wrong that teams like Boise State are making the playoffs? Go ahead, sir.
No, it's not wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, no, I mean, you should have an opportunity. You went to training camp like Ohio State. You worked your ass off in the offseason like Ohio State. You should have the same opportunity. What I'm saying is, if you're looking at it like a fan and you're assuming, okay, Boise State and SMU won their conference, I wonder if they're going to give Ohio State and Georgia a run for their money. And every blue moon, you'll get an NIU against Notre Dame, where it'll be like magnificent. Northern Illinois beats Notre Dame. But if you're expecting that every single year to happen and that you're going to be at the edge of your seat for every one of these games because it says playoffs, well, then you're just kidding yourself. You're going to get that game once a year. You're like, Boise might come in and beat Texas. And everyone's going to say, this is great. But don't expect the following week for SMU to come in and beat Ohio State. And then the following week, Arizona State to knock out Ohio State. That's not going to happen. More times than not, it's going to fall in line of how it's always. Like you said, Minnesota's in the Big Ten. Okay, their chances are they're not going to be in the Big Ten championship anytime soon. They're not going to get an auto bid to go in there. But people know that. They're not disappointed, except you're disappointed. But the rest of the country has accepted that, and they're not going to sit there and watch Minnesota play Ohio State and think, boy, I put this, I'm 3 hours aside on my calendar because I think Minnesota is going to knock off Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. People know that, I'll watch the game just to watch the game, but Ohio State's going to beat them 99 out of 100 times. People are expecting so much out of the playoffs. They're saying, okay, if we put them in their right spot, if we seed them in the right spot, everybody has a chance.
I think most college football fans are not expecting too much. I think Paul Feinbaum is. I think Heather Dinich is. I think that Ding Dong Clay Travis is. I think Peter Burns is. Kirk Herbstreit, I don't know. He's completely lost his marbles. I think they believe because Indiana got blown out, everything was wrong with the committee. And because SMU got blown, everything was wrong. This was all wrong. Oh, no. And we just started this expanded playoffs. We just started this home and road stuff in the first round. We got so little data points. And ESPN I mean, Paul Feinbaum, I don't know if you saw it. It was a report today. He's hopping mad. He's hopping mad. What are you mad at, Feinbaum? What are
I don't
you
listen
mad
to that
at?
guy.
ESPN has, SEC has all the money. They have all the players. They have great fan bases, great programs. You're going to get most of the teams in, most of the years. You're going to win most of the national championships. Tennessee just got their doors blown off. What are you mad at? Because
Here's the
Alabama
thing.
did not make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Grow up, Feinbaum. Jeez.
Well,
Go ahead, sir.
You don't take him seriously. He's in the pockets of the SEC. You can watch ever since he came on the scene. Everything's been SEC. He's like he doesn't even want to talk about any other conference. He don't even want to talk. He rolls his eyes if you bring up another team. Like, well, what do you think about Ohio State and Tennessee? You see him rolling his eyes like, really? You're going to talk to me about Ohio State when Tennessee's in the play? You know, he's just. It's almost like he's the guy. He was like Feinbaum reminds me of the woman in Iowa who said that Trump was going to lose. He was down by 5 points. When everybody in the country knew that Trump is not down by 5 points. He's going to win.
But here's the problem. And then Jamie says no one should ever take something that Feinbaum says news. Well,
right.
Well, but they're all mimicking each other, Jamie. All of them. Who's disagreeing with Clay Travis, Heather Dinich, Kirk Herbstreit, Josh Pate? You go right down the list, man. All of them. That J.D. Pickle, a couple other guys on On3. Who's that? I mean, go to your, all of them are singing from the same songbook. Singing from the same songbook. Now, we're not supposed to take any of them serious. Well, these are the people that SEC country listens to, by the way. Right? And they're all in the SEC country, for the most part, are all singing from the same songbook. It's okay. Go ahead, sir.
And that's true. But let me ask you a question. When you go get your news, do you listen to CNN or MSNBC?
I don't listen to any of them.
Right. It's all fake news.
Narrative.
It's right. It's propaganda. It's all fake news. That's what these guys are. They're in the ESPN wants them to push a narrative. No matter what happens on the field, they want to get people to start believing. Like, you know what? Maybe we should just go to a super conference and have the Big Ten and the SEC play each other. Maybe that's the narrative that they're pushing. Let's get people to start pushing for the super conference.
Go ahead, but you know what? And I'm going to let you finish up the call here. Go ahead and push for that, but it's not going to happen for another 5 years. So, I don't, to do this for 5 more years is exhausting. To say that SEC and the Big Ten, the Super League, or those two, it's not going to happen for another 5 years, guys. We got a 5-year contract, playoff, people sign. So, if they're going to do this for 5 years, holy smokes. But go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I'll finish up after this comment. I agree with you, Greg, but that doesn't mean that they're not told to push that narrative. So when 5 years gets there,
I get it. And that's why I'm calling them out tonight.
Right. And one more point. Here's the way they look at it. They look at it this way. They look at it like, okay, SMU got in, Boise got played. That was a wasted spot. They look at it like the Canadian Football League has a Super Bowl champ, but we don't invite them to the NFL to play against the Kansas City Chiefs, do we? Yeah. That's how they look at it.
Yeah. All right, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Later.
All right, phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. I'm trying to keep up with all the, I'm getting a lot of posts here. What do we got? We've got, no, that doesn't tell us the time. Do we have first of all, do we have any Las Vegas lines for the quarterfinal games? And do we have the times, the schedule for the quarterfinal games. Does anybody have the schedule for the quarterfinal games? Have they come out with it? Have they come out with it? Yeah, Nathan, I agree. It's amazing how you can take something so good and make it a bad weekend out of it. Only Disney can pull that feat off. Just because of one potential slight. Because they did not get a fourth SEC team in. ESPN had to do this 28-hour marathon of just dumping on everybody. God, it's kind of depressing when you think about it. Anyways, Penn State minus 11 over Boise. Penn State, Boise, December 31st, 5 p.m.
Call from
Mullen.
Thank God. Thank God Mullen called. Mullen, first of all, Mullen, I do have to apologize to you. I called you before the Buckeye game. I kind of vented at you. I think I called the Buckeyes a nasty name. I think I threw an elbow at you. And I also got a little delusional during the game. I was really starting to think that I could go one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith and shut him down. Man press, up at the line of scrimmage. But then I came out of my delusion. I think I ate too much sugar. And now I'm really embarrassed that I ripped on you, the Buckeyes and everything. So please take my apology and congratulations on a big victory, Moen.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Tennessee fans who all visited and spent their money here in Ohio. That is very kind of them. I am glad that they will be going home. I hope they have a safe journey. I understand there's enough salt coming out of the stadium to put on the roads so they don't have to worry about any slick spots. So thank you to the Tennessee fans. You were very toxic all day yesterday in Columbus, Ohio. As we say in the country, you were showing your ass around town. That's what happens. That's called karma. So you can go ahead and change it on Apple Maps. This is not Neyland Stadium North. That's the shoe. That's Ohio Stadium. Now you know it well. And let this be a lesson to any other team that wants to come up here and play home games on campus. Home games on campus. How fantastic has he been?
Yes.
You've had Penn State. That Penn State game, it was insane, the sound.
Yeah.
And they were miking the crowd. They finally mic'd the crowd, and you could hear how loud they were. And then when Tennessee was at the goal line in the student section from Ohio State, and you could hear it. You could feel it in the surround sound. It was awesome. I don't know why people are complaining. Well, I do know why people are complaining. Because they think that there's another team that deserves to be in over another team.
Yeah.
And I got news for Kirk Herbstreit. Now, let me tell you something. I said this on X earlier today. I've been a resident of Ohio for 40-plus years. I remember when Kirk Herbstreit was just a local D-bag. Now he is a national D-bag. Everybody in Columbus or Upper Arlington has a Kirk Herbstreit story, and none of them are good ones. So I'm not surprised at all by this. This is just his nature. This is what he is. I'm not surprised that ESPN continues to push this narrative of how, oh, woe is me, we don't get competitive matchups. You do get competitive matchups. Look, SMU could have played better than they did.
Yeah.
They didn't. Indiana could have played a lot better than they did. They didn't.
Yeah.
Clemson did pretty admirably against Texas, all things considered.
Yeah.
And Tennessee was the number 3 team in the SEC against the number 3 team in the Big Ten.
Who finished 4th in the conference.
Yes.
Buckeyes finished 4th in the conference.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
And Buckeyes basically covered the over by themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Every
it's not that there's not competitive matchups.
every single talking point of ESPN and SEC was destroyed tonight. And if it wasn't going to be destroyed tonight, it would have been destroyed next year. Or you know what I'm saying? They went out on they got themselves so much in a corner, so much out on a limb. We knew the branch was going to fall off. They were going to come tumbling down. It just so happened it happened tonight in a huge way, and it's embarrassing. Did you listen to Curb Herb Street during that game?
I finally turned it off with ESPN too. They had AJ Hawk calling it over there. So.
Don't these guys realize that they're coming off as ignoramuses? Like really, I mean, their credibility is completely shattered. You got to if you're going to make the speech on Indiana, you got to make the speech on Tennessee. And if you don't, then you should probably get out of the booth, get off the panel, and go home, because you're worthless to every part of the country outside of the South. Let's be blunt about it. This is where ESPN, and they control the playoffs for another 5 years. We're going to get 5 more years of this drizzling bleep. Really? Go ahead, Mo, and I apologize.
Oh, you're fine, Greg. I just would like to say that putting credibility, integrity in the same sentence as Kirk Herbstreit just seems like a crime against grammar. I would never do it. But you're right. This is the SEC narrative. This is what they want to push. And, they want you to ignore the history, because apparently in the 14 playoff, there were never any blowouts. In the BCS era, there were never any blowouts. If you go back to the AP era, there were apparently no blowouts in the Orange Bowl or the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl or the Cotton Bowl. These blowouts are all a new thing caused by this 12-team playoff.
Because we're letting Indiana into the playoffs and SMU into playoffs because they won 11-1, and maybe we should have taken a 9-3 team because they're blowouts. This has never happened before. It always happens. It always happens. ESPN, get your head out of you. You know what? And SEC, get your head out of you know what?
Yeah,
come on now.
It's all the conference's fault for uneven scheduling, Greg.
Yeah.
Because, when the Big Ten scheduled Indiana's schedule, they only scheduled them to play the defending national champions and the runner-up to last year's national championship.
And they never mentioned that either. It's almost every single... I don't know. I don't know if it's the culture. I don't know if it's everybody wants to get the next job at ESPN. I don't know what it is. It's a great money machine. It's the most powerful conference in the country, but it's like people cannot think logically.
Well, they're just gonna keep putting it out there until they hopefully they think they can speak it into existence. The best thing that can happen, they don't win the playoff this year, regardless of who wins. I don't think Texas or Georgia winning is going to benefit anybody.
It'll benefit their school, and I think Tennessee. I think Georgia and Texas got a good shot, my man. I think they got a good shot.
I think the 3 best teams in the playoff are all in the Big Ten, Greg. That's all I'm going to say. And, that's watching it on the field. So
okay.
I will leave you with that, sir. Go Buckeyes. Congratulations to Ryan Day. He got a reprieve.
All right, yes. And I guess I'm going to have to take down my Love on the Rock song for Ryan Day, but all right.
Hey, you can always put up Every Rose Has a Thorn.
For who? For Ryan Day?
For Ohio State. For Ohio State, playing in the Rose Bowl.
I can't do back-to-back Ohio State rendition. I'm going to have to... You can do it for Oregon, and Ohio State will be the... Yeah, but you can do it for Oregon, and Ohio State will be the Thorns. Okay, but I need to take suggestions on the next PATC rendition for ESPN and Paul Feinbaum. So,
How about 2 out of 3 ain't bad?
okay. All right, I'm going to
All
work
right,
on
Greg.
that. Thank you, Moen. Appreciate it.
Catch you later, Greg.
You got it. Whoops.
Call from
A wild youth.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Wild Ute is on the line. He's got Mr. Dampier as his quarterback for next year. He is all excited. Wild Ute, the floor is yours.
Congrats to Buckeye Nation. What a win, Greg.
Yeah.
Seriously, what a freaking win. I'm calling in to say that the SEC's reign of terror is over. Officially over. The dominance that the SEC's put out there for the last 20 years is over. It really is.
Can you hold on 1 second, Wild Ute? I apologize. This is very unprofessional of me, but I have been skipping over the super chat. I'm sorry, Wild Ute. I'm not as smooth as you are. So hold on a second. Sorry for another super chat about how much the 3C sucks, but they do in a party celebrating what everybody knows. The SEC is average like everyone else. Thank you, Exodus Talks. I appreciate the super chat once again, and I apologize for the lateness of it. Wow, dude, I apologize. Go ahead. You just got on a roll. Go ahead, sir.
But seriously, like, this Tennessee game is just evidence of what we've already been seeing. And like last year with Michigan winning the championship, with Alabama getting bounced by Michigan, I think that we are seeing a new age of college football where the Big Ten is clearly, to me, surpassing the SEC. And so it's so frustrating listening to Paul Steinbaum and these talking heads over at ESPN. But honest about this, like, it's kind of like in the political realm. You know, years ago and stuff, like political realm, like, you know, you had CNN, that was liberal. You had Fox, that was like conservative.
Yeah.
Basically, ESPN's become that for the SEC, just a talking head, propaganda. And Fox is basically the same thing for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Honestly, from like the outsider's perspective, it's not quite as extreme. ESPN's more extreme, but like these guys like that work for ESPN, they just want to get promoted and everything, and they're basically getting the pressure to spin the narrative.
Yeah.
Like they have to based on their job. It's just like people at CNN spinning the narrative for a liberal, right, or whatever. At Fox spinning the narrative for a conservative. Like it's just part of the gig. And so if you want to get unbiased content, don't go to ESPN, especially if you're a Big Ten fan, a Big 12 fan. As you're a Big 12 fan, you're not going to get anything. They're not going to talk about you.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just a joke and stuff. I think we need to realize exactly what it is. It's just talking head garbage now. It's not good analysis at all. But really, the analysis that I'm seeing here is that the Big Ten's winning a lot of these big-time football games, and they're overtaking the SEC. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In this NIL era, it's going to be harder for the SEC to compete at the highest level. And I think the ESPN folks are seeing that, sweating it out, and realizing that their huge investment in the SEC is waning, and they're becoming more and more screwed and everything. If they become
let me push back a little bit. Let me push back a little bit, Wild Dude, because we're not ESPN, we're not Fox, we're not CNN, we're not MSNBC. We can disagree with each other here. I would still have SEC as the top football conference in the nation. But because of what you're mentioning, NIL and the salary cap and the portal and all this stuff, it's definitely flattened. The gap isn't like it used to be, and it's probably never going to go back. And you've got some of these universities with such deep pockets. Now they can use them. Now they can, instead of being under the table, they can be over the table. You've got some of these. We don't even know what we don't know. I mean, Stanford, if they decided to become a giant in 5 years, they will be a giant in 5 years, right? We don't know who's going to do what. We're all just, and of course we got private equity and all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, SEC doesn't have the grip that it used to have, but it still, it still has advantages. One of the advantages, all their fan bases are intense, lot of viewership. And to me, they're still the most powerful conference, most valuable conference in the country. But I think the gap is, look, we are in a different era, no question about it. And what really upset me, Wild Ute, is, I mean, it's like 4 minutes into the Indiana game. My chat room and the X and everything, everybody had these wild, they've already made the decisions. Like, okay, Indiana sucks. This other team should have been in. Big Ten sucks. Everybody sucks, right? We're back to that again. We just started, Wild Ute. The first time games being played at home campuses, right? We just got data points. The first 4 data points, all the home teams won. Well, maybe, just maybe, it's going to be very difficult to win on the road. Now, next week, Wild Ute, this is where I'm going to bring you in here, okay? Wild Ute, next week, for the very first time, we're going to have 4 teams that just played a playoff game play against 4 teams that just had a bye. And we don't know. Like, we're not going to know. Like, we're not going to know after the first game, like, how much of an advantage it. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And I'm afraid we're going to do this all over again. Like, Texas versus Arizona State, right? Let's say Arizona State, they're not going to be, they're going to be the underdog. Let's say the Sun Devils come out and win by 17 points. Are we going to have everybody throw up their hands and say, we can't have buys? It's too much of an advantage. We can't, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Everybody chill the bleep out. Everyone, can we watch these playoff games, evaluate it after the playoffs, get more data points? Go ahead, Wild Ute.
It's kind of the joy of college football, but it makes you play your head out too. It's the tribalism, right? The SEC tribe and ESPN, like, they're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to spend whatever narrative to support their tribe, right? And like, and honestly, look at, like, even the Big 12. The Big 12's, like, talking heads aren't as big, but, like, I do the same thing, right? Like, we've got biases and everything, so I get it. The only thing I'll push back on you, Greg, though, is, like, I know that you kind of capitulate and say that the SEC is still the most powerful football conference. I really don't think so anymore. You broke it down team by team, had matchups versus the Big Ten. I don't think the SEC is better by any means. I don't even know if they were better last year, and certainly in the future I wouldn't bet on that. But I think that really you need to dig in, like, and think about those matchups. I mean, Tennessee just got punked by Ohio State. Ohio State wasn't even, like, a top of Big Ten team. And they might win the whole dang thing. Oregon would slay Tennessee. And so I think that there's a new realm here that we need to reconsider really how good the SEC is. But anyway, I'll let somebody else jump on.
All right.
Wanted to call her.
I appreciate it, sir.
All right. Take care.
You got it, Wild Ute. Great call, my man. Are we going to see all 4 teams that had a bye? Are they all going to win? It's all going to be sweep? Could it? Could it? How much of an advantage is it going to have a week off?
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Mr. Hurricane. Mr. Hurricane, Rock and Rant is on the line. The floor is yours.
What's going on, Greg?
Your blood pressure down a lot is going on, and I've gotten a lot of I got a lot off my chest during this live show. I got to tell you, what happened tonight is the prime example of why I was pulling my hair out, because people were going out on a limb that eventually was going to fall off the trunk of the tree. And it happened tonight. Blowouts are going to happen, and it's even going to happen to SEC at large teams. Go on, sir. The floor is yours.
I've been in the chats, of course, but I haven't called in a couple of weeks just because I didn't want to even unintentionally come in and try to apologize for Miami, because Miami has no leg to stand on in terms of the playoff, right? And I think there's always outliers in the fan bases, for sure, right, who are always going to be insane. But I'm going to take a little bit of a victory lap that most of the Miami fans, at least, and I'm going to get into some stats here in a second, because I haven't said anything since everything went down. There was a lot of Miami people arguing when it was a issue about Miami versus Alabama before they moved everyone down, and that sort of intellectual conversation you could have about why or why not. But the minute that SMU lost the game to Clemson, you haven't really heard a lot from Miami fans saying how they were screwed. For the most part, right? There's outliers.
Yep.
And you
No,
can
I
tell me
agree.
I'm wrong.
I agree.
Everyone's like, hey, we should have done it ourselves. And, the minute that SMU lost that game and Clemson got in, we knew we were done. We were still pissed about Alabama. And you can make an argument one way or the other. And I've said from the beginning that I'm not going to shed a tear for any school that's like 10 to 15 or 10 to 17. I don't really care, including my own, right? Because we've already expanded. And the other thing I do want to say for all the arguments here, before I want to kind of run down some stuff to back your argument, because facts matter despite what people want to say, is the best teams are in the playoffs. They are. There's some other teams as well that are debatable, but the best teams are in. The 12 captures the 6 or the 4 or whatever that is, right? Just like the NCAA 64 for the basketball, or 68 as it were, it captures the best teams. It does capture some others too, right? And there's the bubble teams, but the best teams are in. So that whole argument is a crock of crap, right? And I'm going to do everything I can to not get your channel banned. But I'm so freaking done with it, because I hate when people are intellectually inconsistent. Like the fans I like from Florida State are the ones who can be honest about their team, even though we hate each other as rivals, right? Those are the people I want to hear. Like whether I like their team or not, I can respect people when they have that opinion. But to your point, because I was getting infuriated all day and because I'm watching games that basically suck. I went and did the homework. So in the 4-team era of the college football playoff, and I put this in chat at different times, but I don't know who did or didn't see it, so I just want it on the record and for you to have the ammunition. In the 14 college football playoff era, 35% of the games in the first round were decided by more than 17 points, and 65% were decided by more than 10. And all of the games we had today started with the Vegas odds over 7. But you know what? So it's just the college football era. If you do that for the actual BCS championship game, it's just as bad. I mean, the CFB championship game, it's just as bad. If you go back to the BCS era, just 2 teams, the average margin of victory in all those games is 16 points. Well, let's defer to the almighty, so amazing, God-given football kingdom of the SEC. The last 20 years, the average margin of victory in the SEC championship game is 17.6 points, and the median is 17.3. So it's not like outliers blowing it out.
So let me just ask a question then, and then you can continue on, okay? So why are guys like Peter Burns, Josh Pate, who I like, all these guys, every single one of them, why do they go on X and say, this is what you wanted? This is what you wanted. You wanted the top. You wanted 12 teams. I warned you. I told you. You wanted 12 teams, not the best teams. What? Were they asleep the last 20 years? They don't know the blowouts happened? It's unbelievable.
It's selective decision about fitting a narrative that you want. And it's really bad about ESPN. And I don't even, I'm not into conspiracy theories and all that other crap, and I know this, Lord knows this channel has a bunch of them in different forms, right? On different topics, and I'm not really there on most of those things. I tend to think it's just like innate stupidity or innate evilness, right, as opposed to like a conspiracy, because people are too stupid to do most of them, but there might be a few. But the thing that drives me crazy about the ESPN side specifically is when it's not convenient, or they don't really have a horse in it, and they're just it's just like more reporting, which happens every once in a while. They can pull up the most inane stat of like the 1957 Chicago Bears defense on third downs in night games on the road and have it. They're choosing to not have this data ready, and it was also balanced by the fact that I don't know, because it was just the way the rankings were doing, that the first game happened to be a game between 2 teams that they don't have a TV contract with, right? So it was easy for them to throw crap against their Big Ten friends in Indiana because they don't have a deal with them, right? It's the first time a Big Ten school has been on ESPN in quite some time. And yes, Notre Dame has been on, I mean, as a home team, right? Or a playoff game or something like that, a championship game. And Notre Dame is the first time they've had a home game on ESPN for a while that wasn't just a basketball as part of their ACC deal. So just by luck of the draw, they got to start drilling into that narrative right away, right? And they choose not to pull that stat out. It literally took me like 10 minutes to do what I just said.
Yeah.
And I don't have an entire support team on there, and that wasn't even using AI. It took me 2 minutes to ask the same questions to AI and got the exact same answers to make sure I was double checking everything. So it's such a ridiculous thing. Hey, look, the game sucked today. They did. I can make a really valid argument that in another world with like a different metrics that I think it's very possible, but I have no freaking idea, and I'm not going to judge it, that an Alabama, a Miami, a BYU, an Ole Miss, a South Carolina, all probably could have had closer games. Like, probably. But I don't know that for a fact. Like, I think Miami would probably play these teams better, but it would be like 67-59, right? Like, I don't know if they would win, but I also don't know that either. Yeah. And I'm not going to judge the committee after. But the hypocrisy that they're not going to come out and do the Tennessee thing.
They're not going to shred Tennessee. They're not going to shred them.
And when I put the stats out earlier on the toxic waste dump that is now X, I had some SEC fans saying, oh, what the hell does this even mean? No, these teams wouldn't, about the 17-point spread in the SEC conference championship games. What does that have to mean? These other teams wouldn't be able to keep competing in the SEC. What it means is that in that zone, the second best SEC team was a 17-point dunce to the first one. So that would have been the same thing as doing, the first or second seed versus the sixth seed right now or something along those lines. And the fact that this 4 games had a margin of victory of 19 versus 17 in the previous 14 era, that makes all the sense in the world. First, it's not enough statistics to judge anything off of in the long run, but it's going to make more sense. Maybe the margin of victory based off of all those other trends I just said might be a little bit worse because you're now talking about not just picking from the top 2 teams from a computer level or the top 4 teams from a committee. You're now doing like down to 12. So you're probably going to get a little bit more variance there. But the whole benefit of this entire playoff, and I'm sure they'll tweak it from who gets buys and the automatic stuff, and that's fine to me. I don't care. I'm like you. If 12 teams from the SEC deserve to go in, then 12 teams from the SEC deserve to go in. And if 0 teams deserve, then 0 teams should go. I know it's not going to happen. I know the money, but that's just where my mindset is. But the entire thought that we're not having the best teams in and these other teams don't deserve it because of hindsight being 2020, when the flip side is the basketball tournament, the best part about it is that teams that we don't think will win, every once in a while do. And they might not win the championship, but it makes it a hell of a lot more interesting.
And when you democratize the sport by more access, you create a better sport. I'm sorry, guys, but it's true. This is the best for the sport. Even having G5 access has helped G5 tremendously, which has helped those student athletes have an opportunity, which has them have the opportunity to go in the portal, which gives them more of an opportunity to go to University of Miami, to go to University of Texas, to go to Kansas State. I don't know what else is. The expanded playoffs is the greatest thing that has happened to the sport.
It absolutely is.
And to put an axe into Indiana's season, to put an axe literally into the skull of SMU's season, and to do that and not touch Tennessee. Now, they shouldn't touch any of them. Indiana got beat. They got beat bad. Congratulations. But you were not good enough to go to the Final 8. Same with SMU. Same with Clemson. Same with Tennessee. That should be the storyline. Not this, Indiana. Kirk Herbstreit. Paul Feinbaum. Over all of them. Every single one of them. Saying that the committee was absolutely worthless. They did not do their job right. Okay. All right. So what about Tennessee? It's not that Larry the GM. It's not that I'm killing the SEC. I'm overrating them or underrated. Treat Tennessee the exact same way you treat Indiana. And if you can't do that, SEC, if you cannot do that, ESPN, then we've got bigger issues than you can ever imagine. And I said it in my monologue. This sport is not threatened by an SMU going into the playoffs or an Indiana and getting beat bad. This sport is threatened when you've got ESPN who holds all the playoff content, controls it for the next 5 years, using their propaganda machine to put an axe to the skull of teams getting beat bad, but they don't touch their own SEC team. That's bad. That's brutal. That's fraudulent. It's corrupt. And Peek Around the Corner is going to call it out. Now, if they do take Tennessee and drag them over the coals, then I'm going to say I would not do that. But at least you're being consistent. But they're not. They weren't last year. They're not this year. They don't want to be consistent. Go ahead, Rock and Rant. Finish it up.
Yeah, they are. Like, you know, what they did to Florida State last year set the precedent for everything, except they're flipping it as it's convenient. It's all about, like, they're creating straw men about what we all supposedly want. And most of the time, every time I hear it, it's like, that's a total crock of crap. That's not anything that I've ever heard discussed or talked about. You guys are making this crap up. You know, and it goes all the way down to you have the athletic director at Alabama, which we didn't even get to, but crying about the portal earlier this week and how people are coming to their players and what was them? Give us more money because we never do that crap. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Do you think we're all that stupid?
Yeah,
we're not in your cult.
I think they do think we're that stupid. I'm like, when they make a comment on X and we all make comments back at them, they never respond. They just sit there. They have no comeback. They don't care. All they want to make sure, they just want to make sure they've got that post that it's going to be in their history. So when they try to get a better job or try to get a better job at ESPN, that is going to be part of their resume. That's the only thing I can think of. Or they just a bunch of complete morons. And I don't think they're morons. So it's got to be that they just want continue to further up to get that access. And that's why they're going to treat Tennessee differently than they treat SMU and everybody else. Go ahead, Rock and Rant, finish it up.
Yeah, the last thing, just I don't want to take because I know there's a lot I wanted to talk today, but the one I know there's some changes that can get made, minimal, I think, between now and next year, but the overall is still kind of the basics are the same. I think everybody should not overreact to what happened in these first 4 games.
I don't think
because
so. They should.
Nope. It's going to happen the same way next year, right?
Yes.
Like, we don't know that the teams aren't going to be completely flipped, that it's not going to be top-heavy, that it's not going to be super clear.
Yes.
And that, SMU, like, there's a world, like if you go into the Marvel multiverse, there's a world where SMU doesn't shoot themselves in the foot like 3 times in the beginning because that was self-inflicted. Penn State took advantage of that, and then after that they just rolled and like all the credit to them. But there was a world where that doesn't happen, and that they survived that first quarter in a different thing, and a different outcome could happen. There's a world where all these, Alabama doesn't lose 3. They win 1 more, and they get it, and they do that stuff. So let's see what happens next year. I think everyone's going to have this freak out and talk for 8 months, which I guess is going to be good for views for you and everything.
If I don't stroke out first, go ahead.
If you don't stroke out, and if realignment doesn't completely implode all of it, where that happens. But ultimately, this whole thing, they're all missing the point. Most people I know who are into college football, and I've been into it as my #1 sport for decades at this point, were more into it this year, despite the fact that they crapped on fans with lawsuits and all this other extraneous stuff, because the playoff made me watch Boise State at 10 o'clock at night in a way that I never would have. And I know more about the Big 12 now than I ever would have a year ago. And it's all because of what the playoff has done. Yeah. And it has expanded the interest and kept a lot more teams in, and the college football playoff in FBS is still, and here's my last stat, of all of the major sports, men's and women's in college sports, from FBS down to JUCO, and the major sports league, even if the FBS goes to 16 teams in the playoff, it is still the lowest percentage of overall teams relative to how many members are in there in a playoff of any of the major sports in college, from NAIA to top level to pro sports that I'm aware of, and I checked it. So it is still an exclusive company no matter what people want to say, and the best teams are in. There may be a few borderlines that are not and a few others, but the best teams are in this playoff, and whether that's 2, 4, 6, or 8, they're in it.
Yep. All right, man. Rock and Rant, I appreciate it. I can't wait for the next Mafia show. Boy,
I'm going
guys are gonna
postal
be
tomorrow,
explosive.
man. I'm going to be a lot less nice than I was just now.
Yeah. All right, sir.
Have a good night, Greg.
You too, man. Appreciate it. I got to get caught up here. I do apologize to X-McTalks again. And I already lost, boy. I'm way behind. I do apologize. I apologize to S-McTalks here. Gifted membership. Hold on, everybody. Hold on.
Call from
JD.
JD, can you hold on a second? I've gotten way behind.
Yes, sir.
I'm slow, disorganized. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. It's been a long year. X-McTalks, I think I missed one of your... Yikes. I appreciate the gifted membership. Another gifted membership by X-McTalks. I don't know who got the membership. I do apologize for that. But you are hereby knighted, cloak and dagger once again. Thank you so much for your generosity. And I do apologize for getting so late to you once again. I've done that to you a couple of times today. Just giving back to Greg the easy money that I won on the Buckeyes. Thank you so much again for your super chat, for your generosity. Thank you, sir. And Larry Andrick, Mr. Mountaineer, who's a new member of PATC, College Football's Peak Around the Corner. Thank you so very much for becoming a member. You are hereby officially knighted, cloak and dagger. Larry, when you get an opportunity, you can go watch our episodes, member episodes only. I appreciate it, Larry. JD, Mr. Seminole, thank you for your patience. I do appreciate it. The floor is yours.
How you doing, sir?
I'm exhausted. I'm still a little fired up, but I'm tired. I'm going to sleep well tonight. It's been a long... I thought this was going to be a glorious college football first round of the playoffs. But, and I don't mind blowouts. It's part of sports. I wish there'd be more competitive games. But ESPN, man, ESPN, as you know, JD, what they did last year, I am very disturbed. I actually think ESPN is the biggest threat to college football. If the success of it, the health of it, for most of us, I think ESPN is the threat. JD, the floor is yours.
I would agree on that completely. Their bias is on full display, and it's not just conspiracy theory. It is reality. It is there. It is the SEC media in general, and other outlets have bias. You know, everybody has bias, but this is to a point of corruption, and I think you hit it well. And I got to congratulate you and a lot of your previous callers that I heard. Most everybody's touched on a lot of the points that I was going to bring up, but
I wasn't bothered by today. I wasn't bothered by last night. You know, look at the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
There's blowouts
Yes.
every week. You know, look at the NFL schedule tomorrow. Some of these teams, you know, they play each other a couple times a year. One of them will have beat the other one, and then tomorrow the one they beat 3 weeks ago will blow them out tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just the way things go.
Yep.
I mean, look at SMU. Are they that bad of a team? No. Can they play with Penn State? Yes. Would Penn State beat them 8 times or 9 times out of 10?
Yeah.
Absolutely, they would. But you know, when your previous callers were calling in, I think Moen and what's the other gentleman that's a Penn State guy? What's his name again?
Nitwit.
That's right, Nitwit. They kept bringing up the atmosphere.
Yes.
You know, this is uncharted territory.
Yes, sir.
SMU is used to playing in front of 20, 30,000 people, and you put them in that atmosphere. To say somebody's intimidated is an understatement. Okay, a lot of these guys are still kids. Some of them are 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yes, sir.
You know, they're not 25, 30-year-olds or NFL veterans that have played hundreds of games like this. So the human element comes into play. So everything that happened today, I mean, look at Clemson. People look at the box score and they say, well, that was a blowout. That wasn't a blowout. The game was still somewhat – Clemson had a chance if they converted on that 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 – or excuse me, 4th and goal on like the 1 or 2 and they scored there, it's a 7-point game. You know, they would Texas probably have still pulled it out? Sure. But it was in the margin of error where they had an opportunity. And, you know, Texas is still the better team. Texas kept, you know, stubbing their own toe all day. But Clemson came out and they fought. And that was actually the highlight of the day for me because, you know, people kept saying that, you know, SMU and Clemson are putting the ACC in a bad light. SMU just, you know, the lights were too big, but I thought Clemson fought hard. And, you know, one of the things that has become more and more apparent to me, the way a lot of this postseason has been structured by ESPN and Sankey and the way they're setting it up, they really thought that in a lot of these expanded playoffs, they were going to start getting 5, 6 SEC teams into the playoff. Isn't it ironic what they've actually done is they've leveled the playing field for everyone else?
Yeah, and because they needed everybody to sign off on it, because there's a middle of a media contract, right? We needed everybody to sign off on it. This everybody had to agree. So this is what we got. We have it for now. Now, of course, the SEC and the Big Ten, if they wanted to, they could create automatic qualifiers. There are some things they cannot do. They cannot take away the automatic berth for conference champions. They cannot take away the availability of getting in a large bid for Notre Dame if they finish in the top 12 or 14 in the nation. There's certain things they cannot do. There's certain things they can. But yeah, you're right. More access. You know, there is an inertia to that. More access, more democratization. There's a certain inertia that flattened things out. SEC still the most, in my opinion, the most powerful, successful, valuable athletic conference in the country. Its content is the most valuable content in the country. I think some gaps have closed in some ways they haven't. But democratization is going to make it so maybe an SEC team that should have maybe possibly made it, they don't make it. or a Big Ten team that could have probably should have maybe, well, you know what? They're not going to make it because of this democratization of the sport, which is the best thing that has happened in this sport in my lifetime. JD, go ahead, sir. I apologize for interrupting.
No. Actually, I want all the input from you I can get. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being the voice of reason out there as far as national college football. I say accounts, but you know where I'm going with that. And
I appreciate it.
There are some that I thought were very sensible in some ways, that they have just gone totally off the deep end to just a complete bias in one direction or the other. But yes, sir, there's still some pitfalls moving forward where potentially the SEC and or the SEC and Big Ten can further remove themselves from the rest of the competition. The way that everything is set up now, when you're going to have basically not necessarily a salary cap, but a framework in place, you're going to see the continued spreading out of the talent. I think you and I talked about this, and others I'm sure too, but we talked about it about a year ago where NIL, and actually probably a year and a half ago, NIL was kind of spreading everything out, and I've gotten some pushback from people when even as at the beginning of the season or even during the season when I was saying that the days of the dynasties like Bama and Georgia, those are over. You're still going to have your blue bloods that are always going to be in the mix.
Yeah.
But to have the super teams like Georgia had a few years ago, you just can't stockpile that much talent. You're not going to be able to. I heard Herb Street talking about that tonight, and that's the difference. Now, you are getting a mini NFL type system in place where it's all about the matchups. That's why you're going to lose. Everybody's going to have one loss every year. Usually, Oregon's undefeated, but it's not just, they're going to win because this is their name. Ohio State walks in and they're expected to beat X team just because they're Ohio State, and you assume they have all these players. Well, what if they're a little thin at linebacker? Or what if they're a little bit thin at DB and they got a lot of injuries?
Yeah.
It used to be you'd have 4 or 5 deep on some of these teams. You may not have that anymore. And it's just good for the whole sport unless the P2 separates themselves completely, and that's always a possibility. But for right now, there's a lot of positive momentum, and I have enjoyed. I always enjoy your shows, but I've enjoyed listening to you and the callers, and it's been a good day for me. So
I'm sure it has. Thank you, JD.
Hey, have a great night.
I appreciate it, sir. Appreciate the call.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Now, 13-month member, Larry. I apologize. You're a 13-month member. Thank you for the super chat. Just make sure you put that in the comments section for the next month, whatever. Thank you, Larry, for being 13 months a member. Early Pete Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Mr. Mountaineer. I appreciate it very much. I know we did not have a competitive games. Clemson, they put up a good fight. Texas, I know it was against Clemson and Clemson's running defense. Not all that good, but if Texas keeps that running game going. Now, they had an injury to one of their offensive linemen, but if Texas can get that running game going, Arizona State, you're going to have a lot of trouble on your hands, Sun Devils. Sun Devils, you're going to have a lot of trouble on your hands. And you're going to have to mix it up on offense. Sam Levitt, you're going to have to make some first down using your legs. because Texas defense. Anyways, we'll talk about that all next week. So you know what? We have not been able to do the mariachi music during our watch parties for quite a while. It's been kind of disturbing. But guess what? We're going to play it right now. In celebration of the first round of the college football playoffs. It's in the books. And now we go to the quarterfinals. And now we got the storylines building and building and building. The mariachi playoffs. Congratulations to Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. Congratulations. All right. Si se pueda, Jose, USC Trojan. I think we're going to lock it up. We've been on the air for over 2 hours. We were on the air well over 4 hours earlier. Last night we were on the air for 4 hours. Watch party, watch party, watch party, watch party. I want to thank you all for joining us. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. Open up those notifications. We can come on live at any time. We cover breaking news, everything in college football. We are even known to make our news ourselves. We have broken quite a few stories here at Peek Around the Corner. So please become a member. Go to the description box below the video. There's a link to become a member of our channel. Hit the link. Become a member. But I appreciate you all joining us. Before you leave, smash that like button if you've liked our content tonight. If you think I was too tough on Paul Feinbaum, Peter Burns, and Kirk Herbstreit and all the rest of them, if you think I did not act in the way I should have, or if you just did not like our content, please smash the thumbs down button. I would appreciate that as well. I'll see you tomorrow, which is today, which is tomorrow, which is today. I'll see you later. Until next time. From all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.